Hello, and welcome back once again to one of my videos. If you're catching this for the first time ever, long story short, I am forcing myself to basically curb stomp my art block by forcing myself to draw art. And I figured what better way to do that than to draw my own D&D characters and basically lore dump onto all of you. With that out of the way, let us begin. Now, this character here is actually my first ever D&D character. She means the world to me. Now, the design is not how she first started. If you want any idea of how she used to look like, think back to the 2003 Mattel Fairytopia fairies and look for the pastel pink one. That's how she originally used to look. And I say this because I was literally a child when I made her. I've grown, and so I felt that she should too. Now, we all know it's not true growth without traumatization, so here we go. Galadriel was a young fae. Born between a fairy and a nymph, the two of them took their best care of Galadriel as physically possible. They lived in a nice little tribe of druids in a forest all alone. It lived near a seaport town, basically. And Galadriel, well, she was a curious-minded one, and had a tendency to maybe sneak out from time to time and hang out in the port town with all the upcoming sailors and everything. It was something that made her have joy in her life, brought change to the daily routines that she had to do for so long, for so many years. Galadriel always was a hard worker. She's the hardest worker. I think that may have been because she was doing her best to keep up the hard work and status that she didn't exactly have, but still allow herself the freedom to be guilt-free when she would sneak out at night to enjoy her free time. And it was during one of those times at night where Galadriel's world would begin to change. Because on one night, on her way home, just before the dawn began to show, Galadriel stumbled upon an injured man. And while the Fae is known to play tricks and not really much care for those around, Galadriel's way of the druids overpowered her racial thoughts. The thought to take a man in and to bring him back to health. That was the way of her tribe. That was the way that they were. No one was a shut out. Everybody was welcome. So Galadriel would take the man and would help him back to her home. And it was there in that home where he stood, and they helped him to the best of their abilities. But what they didn't attend for is for his next actions. One day, after all the time he had spent in the village, learning about their ways, learning about the people, interacting with the younglings, he just disappeared. This didn't surprise them. They knew that he would eventually have to leave, of course, but it didn't sting any less. Nonetheless, they would continue on, they would work, and it would be a good month before they saw their friend again. And they say friend with quotation marks. For when he came, he did not come alone, and he did not bring gifts of joy and thankfulness to the people that he had lived with so long. Instead, he brought war upon their door. The man came with hundreds of men, and they began to attack and slaughter the Fae and anyone that got in their way. It was the most abhorrent thing that they had ever dealt with. And Galadriel, like the rest of her people, began to flee. It was hard for her, though, as the forest that once bloomed with life and excitement was now engulfed in flames. Anywhere she looked, there was chaos. These warriors, these monsters attacking her people, going for the innocent. She could only do so much. And when she saw a pack of the younglings huddled together, doing their best to get away, and a man before them with a sword raised, Galadriel did all that she could do. She ran to them, scooped them up, but not without damage to herself. In the process of her rescuing the younglings, she was born a scar along her back, one that burned and ached more than ever. She could feel her skin begin to fester and boil. It felt like lava had been poured down her back as she ran. But she still persisted with the children in hand. Apparently, the guards and warriors that came in decided to use iron for their weapons. She did her best to help them. The warriors that the druids had to fight, they could only do so much. I mean, you can only do so much when you're fighting with magic and metal. and as a result, Galadriel and her people would flee. They eventually would find somewhat of a safe haven, but it would never last long because as they would begin to settle, even for a second to catch their breath, the ones hunting them would never be that far behind. It was then decided by Galadriel's elders that she have to go and find them a new home. Not because they blamed her, not because they felt some sort of way, but because out of all of the Fae in the Druids' camp, she was the only one who normally would go out and interact with the people. She had the best chances of convincing the people to give them some sort of information compared to the others. And so she did exactly what she was told. She went out. She began to search. They had to wait until her back was fully healed, and thankfully when the sword had slashed her, it didn't hit her wings, but it didn't ease the pain that throbbed in her back every single day. Along the way, trying to find some safe haven, she learned of a man who used to roam the lands by the name of Vale Witherwood. Vale was an archdruid of his time, and though the information was low, she was able to find some things of him having his own secret place that no one would be able to find him most of the time, that he would hide there for years, plotting out his own plans of war, for he had grown tired of the land that was before them being taken and scrutinized. The ways of the Druids today were not the way that he knew once before. He despised it. He wanted to give the land back to the planet, back to the earth beneath their feet. But every villain needs to be stopped in some way, shape, or form, and he had been taken. He was in jail from what Galadriel was able to gather, and she made it her mission to find him and beg him for help, because out of anyone she felt that would know her pains and struggles, he would be the only one. So she went off. In her mission, she ran into a motley crew, one of them being a strange tiefling by the name of Morthos. And he had essentially hired her on to help him get to the Kingdom of Crag's vault, where it was told to hold so much wealth and money that anyone could live in there and live off of it for generations to come. And he wanted something particular in that treasure trove. So, with the agreement, Galadriel joined in. Normally, she would have denied him in the first place, given her trust was badly shattered. But it was the knowledge that the place they were going just so happened to hold Vale Witherwood within it that made her take on the deal. And together with the strange group that she had made, they completed whatever they needed to do, sneaking into the kingdom of Crag, into their castle, unbeknownst to anyone, and she got her wish. Whilst the rest of the party was off and about, doing their own things, Galadriel snuck into the depths of the dungeon within the castle, and before her she found the towering man known as Vale. Before her, he looked down on her. Then again, it wasn't hard given her size, but she could sense a little bit of malice when they spoke. It didn't take too much convincing, though, to surprise her. He was very open to listening to her. Then again, he didn't have much he could really do. It wasn't like he could exactly say no. And somehow, some way, a strange connection was felt between the two, and he was willing to give her the location of where his land was, telling her that she and her people could live there, but under the condition that she learned the old ways of the Druids, and that she helped her people learn of the old ways. The ways before the current Druid's time, where things were more interesting. Galadriel had no problem doing that. It was during that time, in that conversation with him, learning a little bit of the old ways, where she earned her first name. In the Druid ways, in the old Druid ways, I should specify, they had names they would give out to people that only those who knew them were allowed to use. Special names, essentially. The Druid who earned the name could not speak their own name, but anyone around them could. And she was deemed the Firestar. And in return, once Galadriel found what she needed and learned what she did, she gladly gave Vale his as well. One that would cause an eyebrow to raise for him, but a name still, the Hallowed One. Being followed by one of the motley crew that she had joined up with, another Fae by the name of Finch, much smaller than her, genuinely so much smaller, and quite the annoyance as well, but the strange Fae had making a liking to her, and Despite the fact that she tried to get rid of him in a few different ways, he still stayed. Despite her harshness and coldness, he stood beside her. He made his best to make her laugh. And anytime she asked him why, he said, "Well, dear, with someone as amazing as you by my side, how could I ever let you go? You brought a true smile to my face, something that isn't often. So of course I'd follow you anywhere you go." And together with the two of them, they managed to bring her druid people to the new safe haven. The place was beautiful. Everyone was so nervous at first. They didn't know if they could really trust the area. Would it truly be safe? Was this man that Galadriel spoke to, that she told them and insisted that it would be safe, truly be a safe haven for them? Would they actually be able to start up a new home? Well, it took time. Eventually they would. It would be during that time that Finch and Galadriel would go closer and closer together. And before long, the two of them would wed. If you look for Galadriel now, she'd be deep within her home, guarding it to the best of her abilities, with her husband at side, and at least two young fae running around them, having the time of their lives. She's still very determined to keep her place safe, and despite all of their work, there is still one thorn in her side that continues to grow. She's made a deal to herself that she will ensure that everyone in her home will be safe, that her children will grow to never have to feel the pain that she carries on her shoulders, and that all the lives that she took, despite the fact that she was told it was never her fault, she still blamed herself, and every life that was taken be avenged in one way, shape, or form. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys like this little bit. I didn't want to make the intro too long, so I couldn't give too much information about her in the beginning, so I decided to save it for last. Galadriel, as you saw, is a druid, as I mentioned. She is Galadriel is a circle of wildfire druid, which is why in the photo you see her surrounded by fire. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed her. She means so much to me, and there is still more stuff that's happening with her. She's still an active character that I play. It's just, for the sake of I don't want to spoil things, and a couple of my players actually watch my videos, I can't give the information, but she is not done with the things that she has planned. She may cause a little trouble in the future, but that's to be decided. I hope you all enjoyed the video.